Welcome to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur podcast. I am your host, Kaylee Greenacre, a business strategist, coach, TEDx speaker, author, and your go-to woman for all things business strategy. I am obsessed with supporting female entrepreneurs to grow unstoppable six and multi-six-figure businesses that they love, giving them the freedom and life that they desire. During this podcast, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to become a successful female entrepreneur, from the mindset shifts to sales and marketing strategies, and how to become an iconic leader that people can't get enough of. It is my mission to help you stand out, attract your dream clients and customers, and sell out of your offers with ease whilst building the business and life of your dreams. Let's make this your reality, ladies. Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of Actually I Can, the Female Entrepreneur Podcast. And I'm joined today by the fabulous one and only Lisa Johnson, who is a global business strategist and Sunday Times bestselling author who makes 90% of her money through passive or semi-passive income streams. And of course, today we are going to be talking all things passive income. Lisa, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to dive into this topic. I would love, if you don't mind, to first of all share with our listeners a little bit about you and your personal journey or story.
Oh, well, that story's long now. I'll tell you the important bit. So, I grew up like everyone, like so many other people in council housing. We didn't have any money. And so grew up in poverty, really, and knew from an early age that I didn't want to be in poverty and that I wanted to do something that changes that, but couldn't claw my way out. Like, I was bullied all the way through school. So I left school really early. So that and I was smart. So that kind of put paid to me getting like a really good job. So instead, I started off as an office junior and kind of clawed my way up the corporate ladder and still did okay doing that. I ended up in investment banking in my 30s and was doing okay there, making about 50, 60,000. It was a decent wage for where I came from. And then I accidentally got pregnant with twins. And that changed everything because then, and I was going through a divorce with their dad at the time. And so I was then in this position where I was a single parent who was having to go to work in Canary Wharf at 6 o'clock in the morning and get home at 10 p.m. at night. And that wasn't sustainable. I went back to work when the boys were I think they were 6 weeks old. And it was like, there's no way that this can work. And so I had to go and get another job near where I lived that was like 9 to 5. So I could at least see them before and after. And I was literally only earning the exact same amount as childcare. So there was no extra coming in at all, which was really difficult. But it was like I couldn't be out of work because then when they were old enough to go to school, I would have this massive gap in my CV. And so I went back to being an office junior, office administrator, right back 15 years and started again. And this time I was really bored because I'd had such a level of responsibility. And now I was like on the internet playing all day because there was nothing to do. And so I thought, well, maybe I could earn some extra money and start a business. But I didn't know anything about businesses. But I tried. I started a wedding planning business and did okay with the weddings. I had like 13 or something full planning weddings in that first year. But I was earning barely anything because I thought the best way was to undercut everybody and be the cheapest out there, which obviously isn't, but I didn't know anything about business. So after the first year of doing that, I had a new boyfriend who's now my husband at the time. And he was like, okay, well, let's work out if you can leave your 9 to 5 job. And I worked out I was earning £1.15 an hour. And it was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I need to learn properly about business. And so I decided to go all in. I didn't have any money. At this point, I was 35,000 in debt and it was growing. So I couldn't really get coaches or anything like that. So what I did was went to every free webinar, read every business book I could get my hands on. And I turned that wedding business around in about a year. And I was making the same amount in that wedding business as in my old 60,000 job. So I was like, okay, I can do this. I just need to understand business. I'm very good at taking instruction. And then I realized after about 3 years of doing that it was going well, but I had left my 9 to 5 to give myself a job where I was working all weekend, all the hours, still not seeing the kids. And people were asking me how I'd done it. So they were saying, oh, you know, how have you managed to do this? And I'd say, well, let me just look at your business. And I'd say, well, do this, this, and this, and that will change it. And I realized I'd soaked up all this information and I knew how to turn it into easy business concepts. Like, there's so much jargon when it comes to business. Like, I didn't really understand what any of that meant. And so turning it into just normal words, just go and work out who your actual ideal client is, go and change this part of the website, was helping people. And they were coming back saying, oh yeah, I've tripled my revenue, I've got more clients. I was like, okay, I seem to be good at this more than anything else. And then realized it could be a real job. And so I eventually gave my wedding business away. And instead, I started up Lisa Johnson Strategy, helping people get into business, which was good. But in the first year, I'd made 220,000, which is more money than I'd ever seen in my whole life.
Wow. Yeah.
But I was working 80 hours a week. I was like burnt out. And so I started to look at different business models and go, there must be an easier way of doing this. And I heard somebody talking about passive income. And I didn't believe passive income was a thing. Like, I just thought it just didn't really exist because I had no idea what it was. I just heard the words and gone, oh, that sounds like a con. And so I kind of stayed away from it. But then I heard somebody on a podcast talking about what it really meant, you know, not trading time for money and finding a different business model. And I was like, okay, if this works, this will work for me. And so I decided to put half the money I'd already earned into learning about passive income, which was about 150,000. And I did everything from drop shipping to like anything you can think of, cryptocurrency, anything that was more passive. And some of them I just couldn't get on with and just got rid of them straight away. But some I started to add into my business over a year. So I added memberships, courses, affiliate marketing, all these different things. By the end of year 2, I was working 30 hours a month instead of 80 hours a week, which is a massive difference for me. I was with the kids a lot more, I was traveling more. And I was earning over $1 million in profit.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, why aren't people doing this? This seems like a much better way of doing things. And so started trying to teach passive income, but it was really difficult because it comes across as a con, because people think passive income is like laying on a beach and this money coming to your bank account. It isn't. And so it should be called recurring revenue. It should be called leveraged income, but it's not called that. And so I was trying to get people to do it. And people were like, yeah, one day I'll learn how to do that. I'll come into your course one day. But for now, I'm doing one-to-one and that's working for me. And then COVID hit. And everybody needed to know how to make passive income and how not to do one-to-one in person anymore. And there I was. And that just changed my whole life, really, because we were then doing courses where people in a week, we were making like £2 to £3 million on one course in 1 week. And yeah, you know, over the last 6 years, we've made 20 million. And it hasn't really slowed down because people have realized that it's a better way of working. And so, yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy few years.
But your story and your journey is incredible. And I think what you've accomplished, it's such an inspiration to me. And I know I work with you very, very closely, but also to so many entrepreneurs around the world. You really are a massive inspiration. So I'd love to dive into this a little bit more, obviously utilizing your skills, your expertise, your story, and then how people can really bring a little bit of passive income into their own businesses. So shall we start off by explaining what it actually is? Because like you said, I think there's a little bit of misconception around it and a bit of a misunderstanding. What actually is passive income?
All it means is no longer trading time for money. So if you think about any normal job, whether that's like, oh, I'm going to be a website designer. So you'll design a website for someone which takes your time and they will give you some money for it. And then you'll go and design another website and then they will give you some money for it. So everything's reliant on your time being able to do that. So you will eventually hit an income ceiling because you only have so much time in a day. It's the one thing we don't have more of. So you won't be able to make more money unless you put your prices up. And we all know that you can only put your prices up so many times. So what passive income is doing something once and then making money from it over and over and over again. Now, the easiest way to explain this, and I always explain this in my challenge, is if you had a spare room in your house, you would decorate it. You've bought that room, you would decorate it, you would put furniture in it, so you do all the work, and then someone could stay in it every single week, and you won't have to do a single thing, and they will pay you money.
Yes.
It's the easiest way to think of passive income. but you still had to do the work at the beginning. So whether you are, going to do affiliate marketing, whether you're going to put courses out there or membership or anything like that, you still need to create it at the beginning, and you still need to grow an audience, and you still need to learn how to launch. And these are all the things that take you time. So passive income isn't passive. It's passive after the first year or two. Because in that first year or two, you're learning everything. You're like getting everything ready. You're creating, you're doing all the things. And only then after that. So if you think of like my courses that I put out there, I only put out my main course once a year, but I will put it out there and it will take me, 12 weeks really of teaching it once a week for 1 hour. But I'll do that to over 1,000 people in one go. So instead of one-to-one, so if you're a personal trainer, rather than like teaching somebody one-to-one, you could go online and you could teach 50 people at the same time, all paying you the same amount of money as a one-to-one would. So your time is really leveraged. And then you could record and then you could just put it out there without you even having to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about one-to-many, because it is, I know it's been the best and most incredible program and most successful program out there online. What would you say then, based on your own experience of launching and relaunching that every year and making such a success of it? What would you say are the key ingredients then to our listeners of creating a passive income offer that actually sells?
I think the first most important thing is to grow an audience first to sell it to. There are so many people. When I first started, I eventually bought a course that was on how to create a course. And I was like, great, I want to create a course. So I created this course and I was like, brilliant. I have no one to sell it to because I don't know anyone. And so then I bought another course, which was like, okay, this course is about how to grow an audience. So I grew the audience, like, great, I've grown the audience. I've nurtured the audience. I've now got my course. I have no idea how to sell it. I don't know how to launch. So I bought another course on how to launch, and it was getting ridiculous. So I was like, I want something out there that right from beginning to end teaches people all of it. They shouldn't need to keep buying more courses to get this knowledge. And that's what I created. And I think that the biggest way to make sure it is really successful and that whatever course you put out there, you will make tons of sales, is make sure it gets results. It's as simple as that, because if it gets results, people tell other people about it. People want to become your affiliates. They want to shout about it and say how good it is. And then you won't have to, like, we didn't spend money on Facebook ads until like a couple of years ago, like really, really recent, because we didn't need to. So it was much cheaper to put this course out there than it would be for other people using Facebook ads, because people were shouting about it every year. And that's what you need. You need to get people results. And that might mean you going the extra mile and you doing a bit more. So we realized in our course, for instance, that people were going through the course and they were going, okay, this is a really good course, but I hate the tech. Like, the tech really confuses me and people hate tech. And so we were like, how can we make this easier? And so in the next iteration of the course, we gave them a sales funnel, like templates. All they had to do was fill in a bit of it, and then the tech was done for them. And that changed the game, because then people that were getting stuck there weren't getting stuck there anymore, and they were going a bit further forward. And then we realized that towards the end of the course, people were losing motivation. It's a long course, 12 weeks is a lot of information to take in and to implement. And they were saying, oh, I was like, why aren't you carrying on? Like, we've done the tech for you. Like, why aren't you getting to the end? Because if people don't get to the end of the course, they will never get results. And they were like, well, life gets in the way. I've got busy doing this other stuff. And we were like, okay, we need some accountability. So this year we put in accountability pods. That kind of worked. But this year we've put in accountability calls. So, we basically force people to get to the end of the course so that they will actually make money and get the results. Yeah. And we're really honest about it. I think a lot of reason that some courses and programs, they do well for a while and then they stop doing well, is because people aren't honest about it. They're really good at selling it. So they say things like, you're going to make like 500,000 in the first few weeks, and then people don't. And if people don't, no other people are going to buy it. So we're really honest. We tell people, you probably won't make any money in the first year, which is a weird thing to tell people. But actually, I think people are really smart. I think that they know that that's likely the case anyway. And I don't think they mind hard work for the first year if they know there's going to be rewards at the end of it. And so I'd rather tell them the truth.
Absolutely. Being truthful. And like you said, the client experience, the journey that they go on experience and getting them results is really important. And I think that will support people in helping them sell that offer again and again and again. One thing you touched on at the beginning of that, Lisa, was to do with audience. And if it's one of the first things I ever learned from you years ago when I first came across you, it was all to do with audience growth and visibility. And it was visibility that really stood out to me. And I was like, I need to learn from her. Why is this so important? Let's just dive into this a little bit. When we're looking at passive income and say, for example, people have got a good idea of what they want to launch, maybe it's a course, maybe it's whatever it is specifically. Why is having an audience and your visibility so important?
I think visibility is important because people say people buy from people. I actually think it goes further than that. I think people buy from people that they like.
Yes.
And, when people look at Kylie Jenner or, all the people, Stephen Bartlett, anyone that they see online that they then buy from, because let's be real here, personal brands are more important now than brands. Yeah. So Stephen Bartlett has double the amount of followers, for instance, as some of the biggest corporations out there. Like, you can make more money by being you than you can by having a big old brand. And so if that's true, and people buy from people that they like because they feel like they know them from social media, we have to be visible in order for people to see us and to see what's going on. Like, here's a really good stat. Kylie Jenner, who is just a personal brand, makes more money from selling cosmetics than all the other cosmetic companies put together. That's crazy. And it's just because she showed up online and people got to know her as a person and wanted to look like her, wanted to be her. And that's what it's about. Like, being visible shows people whether they like you or not. And it might mean that some don't. And that's okay too, because we don't need to be liked by everyone. We just need to be liked by our ideal clients. And so by being real and being honest about who we are and talking about the things that we care about, that draws the right people to us who then buy from us. But most people are so scared of visibility because it's a mean world out there. You've seen me get trolled, and people can have a lot of opinions on you, on what you look like, on what you talk about. But if they can get over that part of things and not care about strangers on the internet's opinions, then you can do so well just with visibility. And if you don't grow an audience, you're always going to struggle. It's always going to be the hardest bit. Like, I see the difference between people that have an audience and try and sell something. There's plenty of people there to see it and buy it. And people that only have a small audience. And people say it's not the size of the audience that matters. It is, to an extent, because the more people that you have watching you, the more likely there's a person in there that will want to buy from you. So I think actually audiences do need the size and they need to be engaged.
And I think there's a lot of misconception as well. And to be honest, I think I was under this opinion at the very beginning of my business, where I had an audience and I launched my first course. It was a mindset course at the time. And I genuinely believed, based on everything I saw on the internet, that I could sell it.
Yeah.
And I did sell a couple, my first 2 weeks, I sold a couple. I was really, really proud of myself, but I really struggled. And I thought, well, I have an audience of nearly 10,000 at the time. It was a big audience, but it wasn't the right audience.
Yeah.
I think that was a massive problem for me. I was trying to sell something and just assuming people would buy because of what I saw online. But
I did the same. I did exactly the same. So the first thing I ever launched, grow this audience, it was only 1,200 people in a Facebook group. I didn't have an email list. I was very bad. I would always recommend you have an email list now. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I just grew an audience on a Facebook group. And I had 1,200 people in there. I was like, right, I'm going to sell a course on SEO because that's what these people need. It doesn't matter what they need if they don't want to buy it. And I hadn't even asked them what they wanted to buy. I just put this course out there and no one bought it. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And so I asked them, the best thing to do for feedback is always ask your audience. I was like, why aren't you buying this? And they were like, we don't want that. We want to know how to start a business. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I bought out a course called Fabulous Foundations about how to start a business and made £60,000 in the first couple of days. And I was like, okay, like, we need to always co-create with the audience. I get it now.
Market research, ask the audience what they
Yeah.
want. Absolutely. So having an audience, visibility is really, really key. We know that, coming up with an idea, to sell and create passive income is a great opportunity. So to all of our listeners that are potentially currently working one-to-one, they're potentially they're coaches or service providers, and they're doing a lot of one-to-one work, potentially trading a lot of time for money. I think we've all been there and done that. I know you have, based on your story as well. But what advice would you give them who want to go to that next step, who want to scale to one-to-many or introduce a one-to-many model?
Yeah. Well, first of all, lots of people like one-to-one. I like one-to-one. I take on 5 to 6 people a year on one-to-one because I get joy from doing it. So don't just stop doing something you love. Instead, introduce other passive income streams into what you're already doing. So, for instance, if you're doing one-to-one, let's say you're a coach, and the people coming to you often have the same problems, the same questions. So you're saying the same thing a lot of the time, over and over again. It makes more sense for you to put that into, like, let's say a 6-week program where you're saying the same things as you're saying, but to 50 people instead of one person. And it might be that you want to do that live in a program where you still feel close to your audience, maybe with just 10 people. You'll still be leveraging your time by speaking to 10 people instead of one at the same time, because we do have a ceiling. And at least if we have things like courses or memberships, there's no ceiling on what we can earn. We can always add more people into, for instance, a membership. Membership, you need a generally larger audience for, but there are people out there with huge audiences not monetizing them in any way. Instead, they're doing one-to-one. I'm like, but you have, you're maybe expensive. Maybe you're like 10, 20,000 for one-to-one. Great. But there are a ton of people who want to work with you that can't afford that.
Yeah.
So why are you leaving the money on the table when you could, and also impact on the table, when you could be helping those people for a much lower price? Because high volume, low cost makes you just the same amount of money as not many people, high cost. You can do both.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with that as well. And I think when I introduced my first one-to-many program, it was the best decision I've ever made. And there's not normally a ceiling, is there? I mean, it depends on exactly kind of how you craft it, how you put it together, etc. But I know with your incredible program, one-to-many, there's no cap or ceiling in terms of how many people you can support. And I just think it's such an incredible opportunity for people to really grow their businesses.
Yeah, but scared because they're like, what if I have 1,000 people in there? How will I manage? You'll take on more people to help you manage because you'll have more money coming in.
Yes.
And so it's always okay. Like, I have a team now of 11 people, and most of them are my family, my friends, which is great. But every time we make more money, I take on more people because the clients deserve support. So what you don't want to do is just be you and have this massive course with lots of people out there, because you're going to get burnt out because there's going to be questions. So making sure the team can support as well, and you become the CEO of your business rather than a poorly paid employee, which is what most people start out as, including me, then that's the best way to scale and go about it that way.
And if someone's got an offer, they've mapped it out, whether it's a membership, whether it's a program course, whatever it is, they're going all in, they want to do the one-to-many, which we've just discussed, but they put it out there. They've also got an audience that they think is relatively warm, so they've done their market research, etc., but then no one buys. Now, I know it's going to depend on a lot of different factors, but is there any advice that you'd give someone? Because I feel like our mindsets take a massive knock when no one buys.
And actually, it's usually because you're not launching correctly, if we're honest about it. So I have lots of people come to me and go, I had this really good course, thought it was really good, but put it out there, no one wanted it. So it was a really bad course. No, it wasn't worth it. I was like, you have a look, and you're like, how did you launch it? And I'm like, well, I posted about it on social media twice. And you're like, okay. It's not that it's a bad course, it's that you aren't launching properly. Like, it's noisy out there. Launching is a 6 to 12 week process. If you're doing affiliate launching, it's a 6-month process. And there's a lot that goes into launching, and launching changes. Like, every single year it changes. So how I launched 2 years ago, there's no way I'd be able to launch in the same way now. It just wouldn't work. You have to find new ways of doing things and ways that work. I'm really fortunate that I'm privy to around 6,000 launches a year. of clients. And so I can see what's working, what's not, which is why I teach it well. But usually it's just finding new ways to get the audience excited, because our audience's attention spans, because of social media, have gone down rapidly. Like, what used to get someone excited, say a 90-minute webinar, no one will stay on a webinar for longer than about 40 minutes now. Like, it's just going less and less and less. So you have to think of ways to get people really excited really quickly, and to gamify things, to want them to move on. But that's a really fun way of doing things, actually. And I really enjoy it. It's like I do a challenge most of the time for my launches, and I love challenges, and I'm literally speaking for 15 minutes a day. It's not like a huge time commitment, but also it means you can't fluff it out. Lots of people fluff things out. But if you want people to get results, whereas before people would say, right, I'm going to have a course, I'm going to give you 20 hours. No one wants 20 hours. No one wants to learn anything for any long period of time. People would rather pay you more to learn things in a shorter amount of time. So, and that's a big mistake people make. Like, I'm going to give you everything I've ever known about this subject. Actually, I don't want everything you've ever known. I want to know how to get from A to B in the quickest way possible. I'll pay you more for you to tell me that in 1 hour.
And people are looking for efficiency, aren't they? They're looking for what is the quickest route? What is the quickest way, without shortcutting anything to an extent, but what is the most efficient way that I can get from A to B? Absolutely.
It's the same with launching. What, I want to go into your launch. I want to see if I can learn from you. I want to see if you're the right coach or mentor for me. But I don't want to spend like 90 minutes on a webinar doing that.
No.
15 minutes a day for 4 days. Yeah, I'll commit that time.
Yeah, gone with the days of long webinars and masterclasses and things. And people, like you said, people have a short amount of free time nowadays, don't they, to really tune into things. And I know that, yeah,
bored easily.
We don't want people to bored.
Yeah, and the problem is that people that were teaching this stuff 15 years ago are, and they've done well because they were early adopters, are still teaching the same way now. And then people are going, well, I'm not getting results from this, but people used to. And it's like, because things have changed. Like, you can't teach people the same way to launch now as 15 years ago. It just simply wouldn't work.
No. Well, like you said, things are changing, even to the extent of, from your own experience of launching your main launch every year. I know you do other things every year. You've evolved and changed things as you've gone on, haven't you?
We've had to. Like, this year was completely different to last year. Like, the challenge is the same, but the stuff we're doing behind the scenes, we might be using WhatsApp this year where we were using Messenger last year. We're always testing and seeing what's working.
So with the online space evolving constantly, what trends would you say are shaping the future in the online space?
I think one of the biggest trends is simplifying. You saw me do it over the last year. People had too many things that they were selling. They didn't even like their own businesses anymore because they were doing so many things. And the trend to simplify and just go back to selling 1 to 3 things is working really well. We did it. It's so nice to be only selling 3 things. Lots of people followed suit. I see lots of people now simplifying, and it's a great way of doing things because it means that you become known for one thing instead of 50 things. And people want the expert. They don't want a jack of all trades. And there's a lot of talk out there about being a multi-potentialite. I like selling and teaching lots of things, and therefore I will. You can do that. You will never be the expert. Yes. And people will usually go for the expert, not for somebody that knows a little bit about a lot of things. And so I think that even though people are trying to sell that whole multi-potential idea, I just don't think it's ever going to work. I think that people need to be known for one thing. You get stages, books, podcasts because of your subject. Yeah. And so you need to know what that subject is. And if you're teaching 10 or 20 things, it doesn't work. So I think we're going to see the end of multi-potentialite in the next couple of years. I think it will become an expert-led online world. Things are going to be simpler. I think there's anyone that's selling anything to do with health, I think is going to do really well over the next couple of years. Like, the new generations that are coming into the online world, they care about health much more than we did. Like, that's their big thing. They've clocked on to the fact that it's the most important thing way earlier than we clocked onto it. And so anything to do with health being more important even than wealth, I think is gonna happen. Wealth will always be something that draws people in, but I think health is going to overtake that hugely. So yeah, there's a lot of changes, and we're at the beginning. Like, people keep talking about saturation in the online space. There is no such thing as saturation. Whether you look at, I don't know, any other offline thing, whether it be hairdressers or, Indian restaurants, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be more of them, and they will do well. And the cream rises to the top. So people that are getting people results will always do well in whatever it is they're teaching. And I think the best thing about the online learning space at the moment, it being a multi-billion industry, is that it isn't just about work things. People are buying courses and things on everything from dating, to sex, to anything between, whether it's exercise or anything. And I think that's a brilliant thing. Like, that's how people are learning now. And we all have knowledge in different subjects that we can use to make money.
I love that. So simplifying, finding their real, I'm going to use the word niche, but finding their real focal point, their niche, to build that personal brand, simplifying and really going all in with that. What would be the one piece of advice then that you would give our listeners, our female entrepreneur listeners, who want to future-proof their business in the online space?
Yeah, start using data. Just start using data. I didn't do this in the first few years of my business. And so I was guessing on all the decisions I was making. I was like, well, maybe they want this and maybe they want this. And well, that didn't work. So maybe I should change the sales page. Maybe I should use different pictures. And actually, you can work out exactly what the problem is just by using metrics.
Yes.
And that's how every decision is now made in my business. Is like, let's say you're doing a launch and the launch isn't working and you can't work out why. Go to the metrics. Like, how many people came in from your audience to the challenge? Well, not enough. So we see that actually you being visible is the problem. Let's say lots of people did come into the challenge, but not many people clicked on the sales page. Your messaging is the problem. Let's say they did click on the sales page, but then they didn't buy. The sales page is the problem. Like, you can see everything from the metrics, whether it's open rates of emails to how many people are clicking on an ad. The metrics will tell you what to change and what to make better for next time.
Absolutely. I think that's something that I started to become a little bit obsessed with last year, and it's fascinating, isn't it? It just opens up your eyes and makes you realize what is actually working and what isn't. And I think it makes business so much easier as well when you can see the data and the analytics in front of you.
Yeah, because you're not just spraying and praying.
No.
Not just doing all this marketing and not really knowing what works. And then when something does work, you don't even really know why. And so you can't repeat it. It's much better to go on data, because then you can repeat what's working. So, like, for instance, in visibility, I believe in a multi-layered visibility strategy. Yes. So, doing, say, 3 things every quarter to be visible. And then at the end of that quarter, going, which one of those things has brought the most people into my email list? And then doing more of that one. Because it's just data driven.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on email lists, I wasn't going to ask you this, but I am going to, because a lot of people focus on content and only content. Can you share some light in terms of the importance of building an email?
It's so important. It's more like, you can literally make millions with an email list and no social media. Social media is borrowed land. It's borrowed. We've seen just in the last 2 months that they can take away TikTok. They can decide you can't have lives in a group anymore. They can decide only 6% is seeing anything you put out. An email list is yours, but also everyone on that email list has the same chance to open your email than anyone else. It's not based on an algorithm. It's based on how good you write emails, or even more than that, how good you write the subject line of an email. And so actually, email list is so important. If you look at the trajectory of my business, you can see my email list growing and the millions going up in the exact same arrow. It was all based on email list.
Yeah, so important.
And people don't like it because it's easier and it's more fun to do social media, isn't it? It's not easy with social media. You can we get external validation from social media. We put a post out, people write back on it. It's really nice to know that what you're doing is resonating with someone somewhere. Whereas on an email list, you are less likely to know if it's hitting, because people generally don't write back to an email. We do get a few, but we don't get hundreds like you do on a social media post. And so you don't get that dopamine hit of knowing that your external validation is there. So to grow an email list, your mindset has to be really strong, and you have to not need the external validation and have very, very good internal validation of what you're doing, to be able to continue it consistently for a long period of time. And we do need consistency.
Absolutely. And supports you with your launches, for selling your passive income offer. What's your final piece of advice, Lisa, for our listeners today?
I think the main piece of advice is to not wait for anything to be perfect. Like, you're going to learn on the way. Failure doesn't matter. You're going to learn from those failures. If I had waited until I knew what I was doing and like everything was perfect and I had all my ducks in a row and I had great profile pictures and my website was up, I never would have started. In the end, I started messy. And I just did it. And I learned as I went along, and I got a website in year 3. And, you know, I did all the things you're supposed to do, but I did them late and I still made money. So yeah, don't wait, just start and see what happens.
Go for it. Absolutely go for it. 100%. I agree. Final question for you. I ask all of my guests this question. What is your one word of the year and why?
So this year it's simplify. And not just business, simplify everything. Like, we're selling our house and we're moving into a smaller house. Like, I want everything simpler. I think what I thought I wanted, and I know that this comes from not having any money when I was younger, is statusy things. Like the giant multi-million-pound house with a swimming pool. Like, I wanted all the things. I wanted an empire to show that I could. I'm past the point of caring what I should do. I'm now at a point of doing what I want to do and what makes my life happier. And it isn't more money. It's more time. And so for me, it's simplifying everything down to have more time and to get rid of anything that's based on ego. And, you know, that's what I'm in the process of doing.
Thank you so much for coming on to today's episode. I really appreciate it. And I know we could talk about passive income all day long.
Yeah.
I know that the majority of my listeners will know who you are and where to find you. But for those that don't, can you just please tell them where they can connect with you online?
Yeah, there's 2 different places. The easiest place, and the one that you will only get me writing back to you on, is Instagram at Lisa Johnson Strategist. I still do my own Instagram. And the other place is, if you want some free stuff about passive income or launching, go to lisajohnson.com, go up to the freebie part, and there are a ton of freebies there that you can download.
Everything's in the show notes, guys. So please do go and give Lisa a follow, connect with her, say hello to her. And thank you so much once again for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Actually I Can Female Entrepreneur Podcast with me, your host, Kaylee Greenacre. If you are ready to build, grow and scale your dream 6-figure or multi-6-figure business, then head to our website now for more information or connect with me on socials to see how you can create your dream business and dream life.